The Port of Rotterdam, the largest port in Europe and considered the gateway to the continent and the rest of the world. Its location and its high quality of port facilities and efficiency in processing goods makes it a significant and competitive economic position globally. What makes the Port of Rotterdam competitive is its vast access for deep draft vessels, proper accessibility via water, proper rails and road connections, and high-quality port infrastructure. The port processed 469.4 million tons of products and 8,781,185 containers in 2019. That's on average 24,058 containers daily. However, the Port of Rotterdam has been facing a difficult challenge over the past decades, involving the transnational organized activity of drug trafficking. This video will explain the overall context and problems of drug trafficking in the port, followed by identifying the various public and private organizations involved in combating the problem, and concluding with describing solutions to solve the problem. So, what is happening? Simply put, there has been an increase in drug trafficking in the Port of Rotterdam, mainly the drug cocaine. This has been seen in amounts of cocaine seized. In 2012, the number of cocaine seized was 3,600 kilos. In 2013, this number nearly tripled to 9,800 kilos. Even though the number reduced to 7,575 kilos in 2014, the number reached 19,000 kilos in 2018. This number doubled in 2019 with a record-breaking number of 33,732 kilos seized. The argument can also be made here that the amount of cocaine seized has increased due to the implementation of more effective countermeasures to tackle drug trafficking. Where are these drugs coming from? The top 3 countries producing cocaine are Colombia, Peru, and Bolivia in South America, with other Latin American countries operating as transit hubs to facilitate the transport of drugs. In the year 2000, the United Nations on Drugs and Crime stated that around 160,000 kilos of cocaine was shipped from these countries to Europe, a quarter of that through the Port of Rotterdam. In 2016, it was estimated that 1.4 million kilos was transported to Europe. So what kind of tactics do organized crime groups use? There are various techniques to smuggle drugs. One of the most popular techniques used in the Port of Rotterdam is the rip-off method. Simply put, it involves corrupt port employees removing drugs from the containers once it reaches the harbor. These drugs are initially placed and hidden in the container from the country of origin. Hiding the contraband with illicit goods such as fruits is popular as they are classified as a perishable good, meaning they need to be quickly processed and brought to its final destination before they expire. The drugs can also be physically hidden inside the container's walls, ceilings, or floors. How can corrupt port employees and members of organized crime pull this off? To be quite frank, it's because the port is massive. The Maasvlakte is an area that is mainly used to store containers where stacks can reach up to 3 kilometers long. With the A15 motorway as an ideal escape route, this isolated location has become increasingly popular for the rip-off method. Port areas where fruit terminals and warehouses are mainly present, such as Merwehaven and Vierhavens, including ports used to store empty depots, such as Baalhaven, are increasingly being used to traffic drugs, as the security measures are usually to a minimum. Furthermore, corrupt port employees also pass on information to organized crime groups about the logistics and locations of certain containers, including informing about changes in inspection techniques. The employees can even help further by physically moving certain containers to a different location, for example, by moving it to an already inspected area where the drugs can be retrieved. Employees can also easily change the status of containers in the customs system. Other techniques that are used are criminals entering the port by using the corrupt employee's access card. Organized crime groups also used forged vehicles that look almost similar to companies' cars used in the port. In relation, criminals wear similar clothing to port employees by wearing reflective vests, safety helmets, and logos of port companies. Why do corrupt port employees become corrupt? Based on police reports, the main reasons why employees start helping out organized crime groups is because of financial hardship, or they are convinced by colleagues or family members that are already involved. Other reasons include supporting their family, drug addiction, or gambling addiction. Employees can make a lot of money for doing very easy and simple tasks. For example, an employee can get paid €8,000 just to lend their access card to a criminal. There are multiple public and private organizations in place whose goals are to counteract drug trafficking. The mayor of Rotterdam is in charge of generally maintaining public order. The harbor master is in charge of safe navigation, scheduling and admitting ships, inspection, enforcement, and control. The two main organizations that are dealing with drug trafficking are Port Customs, who mainly counter goods smuggling and collect import duties, and the Hit and Run Cargo Team, also known as HARC, which is the main team who investigate drug smuggling cases, arrest perpetrators, and seize drugs. There is also the Seaport Police, who is mainly in charge of nautical surveillance, environmental enforcement, combating crime, border surveillance, and handling incidents that occur on water. These three teams work closely with one another to combat drug trafficking. For example, the Information Sharing Center is where security managers of these three teams meet regularly around every 6 weeks to discuss updates about security matters. The Port Customs inspect containers based on a risk analysis that has been made prior to the ship's arrival. The risk analysis is based on the ship's last and future ports of call, the vessel's origin, the flag it flies, the cargo it contains, and the crew of the ship. There is even a specialized diving team that is part of the Port Customs, whose task is to inspect underneath ships, including cargo that has been thrown overboard. They also inspect the ship's hull or inside spaces, behind the propellers, near the rudders, or in bow thrusters. The diving team has discovered that a popular technique to smuggle drugs via ships outside of containers is the fixing a torpedo-shaped pipe stuffed with smaller packages of cocaine to the hull or the keel with strong magnets or screws. There are several countermeasures that can be implemented to make it more difficult for organized crime groups to smuggle drugs, and that will increase the amount of drugs seized. The first recommendation is to adjust measures concerning employees working at the port. For example, a sophisticated replacement for loose access cards would be to install biometric access points. With this, employees can only enter port areas with their fingerprint. A further step with this would also be to install time frames where employees can only enter the port during their work shift hours, as usually corrupt employees conduct their illegal tasks during their days off, the weekends, or hours outside of their usual shift schedules. Furthermore, only high authorized employees should have the knowledge about the locations and logistics of containers. Far too many employees can easily get their hands on container information. The separation of tasks of people determining which containers require inspection, who gets to physically inspect them, and the continuous circulation of shifts is a proper step into the right direction. Another recommendation is to develop a port integrity program. The purpose of this program is to inform and discuss security threats and dangers around drug trafficking to companies and employees working in the port. Workshops would be held by security professionals and policing authorities that would describe the risks of getting involved in the rip-off scheme. The goal is that a working culture would be formed where employees motivate each other not to get involved in organized criminal activity. The final recommendation I'm going to mention is the implementation of smart containers. Smart containers consist of monitors that can record all of the container's data. This includes sensing every movement of the container, in general geolocations and its location once moved into the port. Furthermore, it can alert unauthorized access and record which items have been added or removed to the container. Smart containers can even record and adjust the temperature, humidity, and air pressure within. Thus, smart containers make it much more difficult for organized crime groups to use containers to smuggle drugs. I hope you enjoyed this video and thank you for watching.